The bridge of the starship horizon was quiet, almost peaceful. James sat at his station, checking the navigation systems for the third time that hour. He was bored, which was not a good thing on a long space journey. Outside, the stars looked the same as they had for the past 3 weeks. Nothing ever changed in deep space. James reached over to his small table where he had placed a cup of liquid that morning. He thought it was water. The cup was clear, the liquid inside was clear, and it seemed logical that it was water. He had been in space for over a year now, working with different alien species, and he had learned that sometimes you had to assume things were what they appeared to be. The ship was too old to have perfect labeling on everything, and the crew was too busy to worry about small details. He took a long drink. For exactly 3 seconds, everything was normal. Then his throat began to burn. Not the normal burn of something hot, but something else entirely. It felt like his insides were catching fire. James stood up quickly, dropping the cup. The liquid spilled across the floor, making a strange hissing sound where it touched the metal. "What is happening?" James gasped, holding his hand to his throat. The other crew members looked up from their stations. Hannah, the Vorthon navigator, was the first to notice something was really wrong. She stood up and moved toward James, her large blue eyes filled with concern. Vorthons were naturally empathetic creatures, and Hannah was especially good at reading other species' pain. "James? What is wrong?" she asked, reaching out to steady him. James could not speak. His tongue felt thick in his mouth. And his whole body was starting to shake. His vision became blurry at the edges. The pain spread from his throat down into his chest, then into his stomach, and then everywhere at once. It was like someone had filled him with fire and was slowly turning up the heat. Captain Dae-jung was standing before James, even knew he had moved. The captain was small by human standards, barely reaching James's shoulder, but he had the presence of someone much larger. His face was pale as he looked at the cup on the floor. "That is from the supply room," the captain said quietly. His voice held something that sounded like fear. "Someone labeled something wrong." James collapsed. His legs simply stopped working, and he fell to the floor hard. Hannah caught him halfway down, trying to keep his head from hitting the metal edge of a station. James's body was shaking now, violent shakes that he could not control. His eyes were rolling back, and his mouth was forming words that nobody could understand. "Get him to Med Bay. Now!" Captain Dae-jung was already moving, his hand hitting the emergency button on his chair. Red lights began to flash across the bridge, and an alarm started to sound. The sound was different from the normal alarm sounds. This was the sound of a medical emergency, the sound of someone possibly dying. Min, the engineering specialist, was already moving. Even though Min did not usually work on the bridge, Min had been up here doing some repairs when James drank the poison. Min grabbed James's legs while Hannah held his upper body, and together they began to run toward the med bay. The ship's corridors suddenly felt very long, and every second felt like an hour. The med bay doors opened automatically as they approached. Dr. Tayson was already waiting. The Krell medical officer was tall and thin, with 4 arms that made him perfectly suited for emergency medical work. His gray skin had a slight green tint to it, which only appeared when he was worried. He was worried now. "Put him on the bed," Tayson commanded, pointing with 2 of his arms while already moving to prepare equipment with the other 2. One of his arms reached for a small device that would scan James's body and tell them exactly what was wrong. James was placed on the medical bed, and Tayson immediately began running scanners over his body. The machine made soft beeping sounds, and a holographic display appeared showing James's internal systems. What it showed made Tayson make a sound that was somewhere between a gasp and a groan. "What is it?" Hannah asked, watching the display with fear in her voice. "I do not know," Tayson said, his voice tight with stress. The poison is attacking his cellular walls from the inside out. The damage pattern is wrong. It should not exist. Nothing should survive this kind of attack. James's body convulsed on the bed, and a tube was quickly placed in his throat to help him breathe. His eyes were closed now, and he was not moving except for the terrible shaking. His human body was fighting with everything it had, but nobody knew if fighting was enough. Captain Dae-jung entered the med bay, his face completely serious. "How bad?" he asked simply. "Bad," Tayson replied, not looking away from his instruments. "I have never seen this poison in our database. It is not from any known species. It is not from any star system we have records of. And—" He paused, looking at the captain with something like defeat in his eyes. "I do not know if I can save him. His biology is too different from ours. The antidotes I know might help, or they might make things worse." "Then you find out," Captain Dae-jung said firmly. "You find out, or you tell me to prepare his family for the worst. But you do not give up. Is that clear?" Tayson nodded, his forearms already moving faster, pulling different medicines and equipment. Nari, his medical assistant, came running in with more supplies. She was young for her species, with bright eyes and steady hands. She had been training for 3 years to become a medical professional, and this was exactly the kind of situation she hoped she would never have to face. Hour after hour passed, the med bay filled with the sounds of beeping machines and the soft voices of the medical team working. James's body temperature went up and then down and then up again. His breathing was controlled by the machines now. His heart was beating too fast, then too slow, then too fast again. Hana stayed in the corner of the med bay, watching. Captain Dae-jung left and returned several times, checking on James's condition. The news spread through the ship quickly. A human was dying. One of their crew members, the friendly one who always said good morning and helped people with their work, might not survive the night. By the time midnight came, James was completely unconscious. His body had stopped fighting and had simply given up, shutting down as much as possible to preserve what little life remained. Tayson sat on a small stool next to the bed, monitoring every number, every reading, every small change. His forearms were still, which was unusual for a Krell. Stillness meant he was truly worried. "Stay with us, James," Tayson whispered, though the human could not hear him. "Your species is supposed to be strong. Show me that you are strong." Outside the med bay, the horizon continued through the darkness of space, carrying a crew that did not yet know if their friend would see the morning sun, or if he would simply disappear into the black like so many things did out here. The morning came quietly to the med bay. The machines continued their steady rhythm, beeping and humming, keeping James alive through pure machinery and the skill of Dr. Tayson. The doctor had not slept. He was still sitting on his small stool, his gray Krell skin now looking dull and tired, his forearms resting on the edge of James's bed. He was reading data on a small screen, watching numbers that should have been going down, but instead were doing something very strange. They were going up. Tayson made a small sound, something between confusion and surprise. He checked the reading again. Then he checked it a third time. Then he called for Nari, his medical assistant, who came running in with her tablet already in her hands. "The white blood cells," Tayson said, pointing at the screen. "Look at the count." Nari looked at the numbers and made the same confused sound that Tayson had made. "That is impossible. The poison should be killing them, not making him produce more of them." "That is exactly what I thought," Tayson said, his voice slow and careful. "Which is why I ran the test 3 times. And the count keeps rising. His body is not dying like it should be. His body is fighting back. And it is winning." They both stared at the unconscious human on the bed. James's face was still pale, and his breathing was still controlled by the machine, but something inside him was different. Something was happening that their medical knowledge did not have an explanation for. Captain Dae-jung entered the med bay, and Tayson quickly explained the strange development. The captain's expression changed from worry to confusion to something that looked almost like hope. "This is good news?" Captain Dae-jung asked carefully. "I do not know yet," Tayson admitted. "In theory, yes. If his immune system can produce this many white blood cells this quickly, maybe he can fight off the poison. But I have never seen anything like this rate of production. It should not be possible. The energy required alone should have exhausted him." In the corridors outside the med bay, Captain Dae-jung was speaking with his security chief about how the poison got onto the ship in the first place. The investigation was quick and frustrated. Someone in the supply room had made a terrible mistake. A container of xylothian fruit juice had been mislabeled as water. Only a fool would have done such a thing, and yet someone had. Xylothian fruit juice was known to be lethal to most species. It was so dangerous that it was usually kept in a special sealed container in a locked section of the supply room. The toxins in the juice were complex and varied, attacking different types of biology in different ways. The juice was useful for some species, harmful to most others, and had never been tested on humans before because humans had never been part of a mixed species crew before James joined. The captain was furious. Someone on his ship had been careless, and that carelessness had almost killed a crew member. But for now, he had to focus on the present, not the past. He had to focus on James. Back in the med bay, something very strange was happening. The poison was still in James's body, but it was not spreading anymore. Instead, James's cells were actually absorbing small amounts of it into their own structure. Tayson watched this process with growing amazement. It was like James's body was learning what the poison was, and then it was learning how to live with it. "This is adaptation," Tayson said slowly, speaking more to himself than to Nari. "Rapid cellular adaptation. It should take centuries. It should take evolution. But his body is doing it in hours." Jiwoo, the ship's chief researcher, was called down to the med bay. Jiwoo was brilliant, with a mind that could work through complex biological problems quickly. He looked at the data for a long time, his eyes moving across the holographic display, reading the numbers and the patterns. "His DNA is responding to stress," Jiwoo said finally. "Look here, and here, and here." He pointed at 3 different sections of the genetic display. "These are dormant genes. They are activating. They should not activate. They should have been inactive for thousands of years, maybe longer." "What do those genes do?" Tayson asked. "I do not know yet," Jiwoo admitted. "But whatever they do, they are helping him survive. His body is not just fighting the poison. His body is evolving in real time to live with the poison." Hana entered the med bay quietly, carrying some food and some water for herself. She had also spent the night awake, worried about her friend. When she heard what Jiwoo had said, she felt something shift inside her. The human she had been protecting, the one she had thought was weak and small compared to the other species, was actually something else entirely. "So James is getting stronger?" she asked. "In a way, yes," Jiwoo said carefully. "His immune system is becoming stronger. His cells are adapting. But I do not know if it is enough. The poison is still there, still causing damage. Even if his body can adapt, the question is whether he can adapt fast enough before the damage becomes permanent." The next 12 hours were the longest of everyone's life. James remained unconscious, but his body continued to fight. His temperature stayed high, but not as high as it had been. His heart rate stabilized into a dangerous but stable rhythm. The poison stopped spreading. It did not disappear, but it stopped getting worse. Captain Dae-jung was in and out of the med bay constantly, checking on his crew member. Hana sat in the corner again, watching. Nari and Tayson worked in shifts now, though neither of them really slept. Ji-woo continued to study the genetic changes, fascinated and terrified by what he was seeing. Then finally, at hour 32 of James's ordeal, something changed. The poison in his blood began to decrease. Not disappear completely, but decrease. James's body had figured out how to process it. Not quickly and not easily, but it was happening. "He might survive," Tayson said quietly, his voice filled with something like wonder. "I think he might actually survive this." But even as he said it, nobody knew what would happen next. Nobody knew if James would wake up the same person he had been before, or if the poison and the adaptation had changed him into something else. Nobody knew if the strange genes that had awakened in his body would go back to sleep, or if they would stay awake forever. What they did know was that James's body had done something impossible. It had survived the unsurvivable, and that meant that everything they had ever known about human beings, everything they had believed about this species that had only recently joined the galactic community, might have been completely wrong. 36 hours after James drank the poison, his eyes opened. They were not open all the way. They were just small slits, barely conscious. But they were open, and that was enough to make everyone in the med bay hold their breath. Tyson immediately moved to James's side, checking readings, verifying that the human was actually waking up and not just having some kind of small reaction. "James," Tayson said gently, "can you hear me?" James made a sound. It was not quite a word, and it was not quite a groan, but it was the sound of someone returning to the world. His eyes opened a little more, and he tried to focus on the Krell doctor standing above him. "Water," James managed to say, his voice rough and strange, like he had not used it in a long time. "I need water." Nari quickly brought water, though she was careful to make absolutely sure it was actually water this time. She held the cup to James's lips, and he drank like he had been dying of thirst for years. When the water was gone, he lay back on the pillow and closed his eyes again, though this time he was actually resting, not unconscious. Over the next few hours, James became more alert. His eyes started to stay open longer. He could answer simple questions. He could move his hands and feet. Tayson ran every possible scan on his body, checking for damage, looking for problems, trying to understand what his biology had just gone through. The poison was still there. That was the strangest thing. It was still in his system, but it was no longer spreading or causing damage. Somehow, James's body had learned to live with it. Not just to survive it, but to actually absorb some of it, to use it as a part of his cellular structure. It was like James had eaten poison and his body had said, "Okay, we will just use this." By the time night fell again, James was awake enough to have actual conversations. Tayson was sitting beside him, explaining what had happened. The doctor spoke slowly, using simple words, because James was still tired and confused. "You drank poison," Tayson explained. "Xylothian fruit juice. It was mislabeled as water. The poison was very dangerous, and for almost 2 days, your body was dying. But then something happened. Your body adapted. Your immune system created new cells very quickly. Your genes, they activated in ways we have never seen before." James listened quietly, trying to understand what this meant. "Am I okay now?" he asked. "Yes," Tayson said, and there was something like wonder in his voice. "You are okay now. Better than okay. You survived something that almost no other species could have survived." Over the next week, as James recovered, the excitement in the ship grew. Ji-woo presented his findings to the entire command staff. The research showed something incredible. Humans had genes that other species had lost or never had. These genes were dormant most of the time, but they could be activated by extreme stress. Once activated, they allowed the human body to adapt to almost any biological threat. Humans evolved on a planet filled with danger, Ji-woo explained, showing data on screens. There were viruses, bacteria, poisons, extreme temperatures, and extreme radiation. Over millions of years, humans developed the ability to survive anything their world could throw at them. Other species moved to better planets, planets that were safer, so they lost these adaptation genes. But humans did not. Humans kept them. And now, this human has shown us that those genes still work. The implication was huge. Humans were not the weak species that other aliens had assumed they were. Humans were one of the most adaptable species in the galaxy. Humans could potentially survive in places where no other species could live. Su Jin, the medbay nurse, came to visit James on his 7th day of recovery. She brought him a meal, proper food this time, carefully checked and confirmed to be completely safe. She also brought him something else, a small recording device. "The captain wanted you to know something," Su Jin said, her small, furry face showing a gentle smile. "The entire crew has been talking about what you did. They do not think of you as weak anymore. They think of you as strong. You should hear what they have been saying." She pressed the device, and voices came out. Hannah's voice was first. "James survived. James actually survived the poison. I knew humans were special. I always knew it. This just proves it." Then Min's voice. "The research is incredible. Humans were designed by their planet to survive anything. We should be learning from them, not the other way around." Then voices from all over the ship, crew members James barely knew, talking about how amazing it was that he had survived, how incredible human biology was, how they had completely underestimated this species. James felt tears coming to his eyes. He had not expected this. He had expected to be seen as lucky or foolish or careless. He had not expected to be seen as strong. On the 10th day, James was cleared to leave the med bay. His body had completely integrated the poison into his cellular structure. The poison was no longer a threat. In fact, it was now part of him, a permanent change to his biology. He was not sick. He was not damaged. He was simply different now in ways that nobody completely understood yet. As he walked through the corridors of the ship, he noticed how the crew looked at him. The looks had changed. Where there had been pity or concern, there was now respect and curiosity. The small Vorthon water engineer actually stopped him to ask questions about his family's medical history. The tall Krell cargo manager wanted to know if humans had other abilities that were dormant in their genes. James did not have answers to most of their questions. He just knew that he had almost died, and then he had lived. And somehow, that had changed everything about how the galaxy saw his people. That night, he stood in the observation room looking out at the stars. Tayson found him there, his 4 arms folded across his chest. "How do you feel?" the doctor asked. "Like I am not the same person I was before," James said honestly. "Like something in me changed. Not just my biology. Something in my mind, too. Like I understand something now that I did not understand before." "What is that?" Tayson asked. "That I am stronger than I thought," James said. "That we are all stronger than we think. That sometimes you have to be poisoned to really find out what you are made of." Tayson made a sound that was very much like laughter. "That is very human," the doctor said. "To find wisdom in poison. I think your species is even more remarkable than I thought." As they stood together, looking out at the infinite stars, neither of them knew that this moment was the beginning of something much bigger. News of what had happened to James was already spreading through the galaxy. Governments were starting to take notice. Scientists were already preparing to study humans more carefully, and the future of humanity in the galaxy was about to change completely, all because one human had drunk the wrong cup of water. James had been back at work for 3 days when Min asked him the question that would change everything. Min came to find him in the common area where James was eating lunch, and the engineering specialist sat down across from him without waiting for an invitation. "Does it bother you?" Min asked directly. James looked up from his food, confused. Does what bother me? That you were poisoned, Min said. That you almost died. Does it bother you that you came so close to death? James thought about this question carefully. He set down his eating utensils and considered his answer before speaking. Around them, other crew members had become quiet, listening to the conversation. No, James said finally. It does not bother me anymore. It scared me while it was happening. But now it just feels like something that happened to me. But you could have died, Min said, pressing the question. You were literally dying. A few hours longer and you would have been dead. That does not scare you now? I did not die, James said simply. My body figured out how to survive. So yes, I came close to death. But I have come close to death before. Humans face death all the time. In our history, we have faced disease. We have faced starvation. We have faced extreme weather, and we have faced each other. Death is not new to humans. It is something we have learned to live with. The common area had become completely quiet now. Everyone was listening. Hannah was sitting at a table nearby and she was watching James with intense curiosity. Sujin, the nurse, had paused from her meal to listen. Even some crew members from other departments had drifted over, drawn by the conversation. Tell us about this history, Hannah said, moving closer. Tell us about humans facing death. So James did. He started talking about human history, and as he spoke, he realized that the crew had never really understood what Earth had been like. They did not understand the dangers that humans had faced every single day of their existence. He told them about ice ages, when temperatures dropped so low that most living things died, but humans survived by learning to make fire and build shelters. He told them about plagues and diseases that killed millions, but humans survived by learning to heal each other and eventually to understand the science of medicine. He told them about natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, and hurricanes that killed people, but humans survived by building stronger buildings and learning to predict when disasters would come. He told them about wild animals that hunted humans, and about how humans had learned to hunt back, to make weapons, to work together to survive threats. He told them about deserts where nothing grew, and about how humans had learned to find water in impossible places. He told them about oceans and high mountains, places that should have been impossible to reach, but humans reached them anyway. Every single habitat on Earth was hostile to us in some way, James explained. Nothing was easy, nothing was safe, and yet we survived. We adapted, we learned. We changed ourselves to fit our world, and we changed our world to fit us. This is what humans do. We survive. Min was listening carefully. But that was on your planet. That was millions of years ago. That was evolution. Your body did something in hours that should have taken millions of years. That is something different. Is it? James asked. Or is it the same thing, just faster? My body remembered something that evolution had already done. It remembered that humans are survivors. It woke up genes that had been sleeping, genes that said, we have seen this before. We know how to handle this. We know how to live. That is not new. That is just ancient memory in my DNA. Sujin, the nurse, came and sat down at the table. She was a young member of her species with soft fur and large, intelligent eyes. So you are saying that all humans have this ability? That any human could have survived the poison? I do not know, James admitted. Maybe. Or maybe it was just me and I was lucky. Or maybe something in my particular genetics made it possible. I do not know enough about biology to say, but I think you are right about one thing. Humans have something that other species might have lost or never had. We have the ability to adapt to things that should kill us. We have the will to survive against impossible odds. Over the next few hours, more and more crew members came to talk to James. They had questions, so many questions. They wanted to know everything about human history, about human survival, about human biology. They wanted to understand how a species that had started on such a dangerous planet had managed to become spacefaring. Captain Dae-jung came to find James that evening. The captain led him to a private meeting room and closed the door carefully. "Your story is spreading through the ship," the captain said. "By tomorrow, it will be across our communication network and sent to the Galactic Council. The news that a human survived Xylothian poison is already remarkable. But the story of why, the story of human history and human adaptation, this is something that will matter a great deal." "Is that good or bad?" James asked. "I do not know yet," Captain Dae-jung said. He was being honest, James could tell. "Some species will see you as a threat. If humans are as adaptable as you suggest, then humans could potentially survive almost anywhere. Humans could colonize planets that no other species can reach. Humans could be competitors for resources and space in a way that we have not seen before." "And other species?" James asked. "Other species will see you as valuable," the captain said. "They will want to study you, learn from you, maybe even form alliances with you. Your people might suddenly become very important to the galaxy. But that comes with complications. That comes with pressure. That comes with attention that you might not want." James thought about this. He thought about Earth, his home planet, and all the humans living there who had no idea that everything was about to change for them. He thought about the governments and the scientists and the regular people who would have to deal with the fact that the galaxy knew what humans could do now. "What should I do?" James asked. "Nothing," the captain said. "You should just continue doing your job, being yourself, and answering questions honestly when people ask them. The rest will happen on its own. Change always does. The only question is whether we are ready for it or not." That night, James stood in his quarters and looked at pictures from Earth that he kept on his wall. There were images of mountains covered in snow, oceans filled with waves, forests so thick with green that you could barely see through them, and cities filled with millions of people, all those humans, living their lives, not knowing that one human on a ship far from home had changed everything by simply surviving something impossible. He touched the image of his mother's face, frozen in time on a data screen. "I did it," he whispered to the picture. "I survived, and I think everything is about to change." The presentation took place in the largest meeting room on the horizon. Every senior staff member was present, along with representatives from the Galactic Council who had arrived by emergency shuttle. Dr. Tayson stood at the front of the room with Ji-woo beside him, both holding data displays that showed the biological information they had collected. James sat in the audience, watching his own biology being discussed by brilliant scientists from a dozen different species. It was strange and uncomfortable and amazing all at the same time. "What we have discovered," Tayson began, his forearms gesturing carefully at the holographic displays, "is that human physiology is not weak or fragile as we have previously believed. In fact, human physiology is one of the most adaptable biological systems in the known galaxy." He clicked to the next display, which showed a comparison between human cells and the cells of several other species. "This is a normal human white blood cell," Tayson said, pointing to the image. "And this is a Krell white blood cell, which we have always assumed was superior. But look at the structure. The human cell is more flexible. It can change shape more easily. The Krell cell is stronger, yes, but the human cell is more versatile." He clicked again, and now the display showed the genetic data. "These are dormant genes in human DNA," Ji-woo said, taking over the presentation. "They are genes that have been inactive for approximately 15,000 years. They relate to cellular adaptation, immune response, and metabolic flexibility. In most species, these genes would have been lost through evolution as unnecessary, but in humans, they have been kept, preserved in their DNA like an ancient library waiting to be used." "Why would humans keep them?" asked one of the council representatives, a tall being made of what looked like crystalline structures. Because human evolution happened under extreme pressure, Jiwoo explained. Earth is a planet that was not designed to be comfortable. It had ice ages, it had volcanic disasters, it had diseases and parasites and predators. For millions of years, humans had to adapt or die. Evolution did not make humans stronger in a simple way. It made humans adaptable. It made human physiology into a system that could change itself to survive whatever threat came next. The crystal being was silent, considering this information. Tayson clicked to another display, showing the moment when the dormant genes had activated in James's body. When James consumed the Xylothian poison, his body recognized a threat that it had never encountered before, Tayson said. A threat that should have killed him immediately. But instead of dying, his immune system did something that we did not think was possible. It activated these dormant genes. It accelerated the normal mutation and adaptation process that should take millions of years and compressed it into hours. His body literally evolved in real time to survive the poison. Is this something unique to this individual? Another council member asked, this one a small furry being with intelligent eyes. We do not know yet, Jiwoo admitted. But based on the genetic analysis, I believe that all humans have these genes. This was not a mutation specific to James. This was human genetics doing what human genetics was designed to do. Adapt, survive, evolve. The room became very quiet as the implications of what was being said became clear to everyone present. Tayson continued. If our analysis is correct, then humans are not an ordinary spacefaring species. Humans are not even a particularly powerful species in terms of weapons or physical strength. But humans are a species that can survive in conditions that would kill almost any other species. Humans can go to planets that are too hot, too cold, too toxic, or too radioactive for other species to colonize. Humans can live in environments that seem impossible, and they can thrive there. Captain Dae-jung stood up. Are you saying that humans are valuable? As a species, I mean. Are you saying that this changes how the galaxy should view them? Yes, Tayson said simply. I am saying exactly that. I came into this situation thinking that a human was too fragile to save, but what I have learned is that humans are not fragile at all. Humans are resilient. Humans are adaptable. Humans are exactly the kind of species that the galaxy needs for deep space exploration, for colonizing harsh environments, for research in places that are too dangerous for most beings. The crystal being made a sound like wind chimes. This means humanity's value in galactic trade and politics has increased significantly. Humans could become very important. Yes, Jiwoo agreed. Humanity's position in the galaxy has just fundamentally changed. Hana raised her hand. But does this mean that James is now different from other humans? Has he become something else? That is an interesting question, Tayson said. To answer it, I would need to study other humans and compare their genetics to James's. But for now, I would say that James is still human. He is just human who has activated genes that other humans have not activated yet. Whether other humans could do the same thing under the same circumstances, I cannot say with certainty. Over the next hour, the presentation continued. The data was shown. The evidence was explained. By the time it was finished, every single being in that room understood that something fundamental had changed. Humanity was no longer a new species trying to find its place in the galactic community. Humanity was a species with unique capabilities that could be valuable in ways that nobody had previously understood. That evening, Captain Dae-jung sent a message to Earth. The message was long and detailed, explaining everything that had happened, everything that had been discovered. He explained about James drinking the poison and surviving. He explained about the dormant genes and the incredible adaptation. He explained about the decision the Galactic Council was preparing to make regarding humanity's status in the galaxy. News channels on Earth exploded with the information. "Human immune system baffles alien doctors," said one headline. "Earth sent strongest survivor to the stars," said another. Governments began emergency sessions to discuss what this meant for humanity's future. Scientists on Earth started preparing to study the genetics of healthy humans to see if the same adaptation genes existed in Earth's population. James received a message from his mother. He played the video in his quarters, and there she was, tears streaming down her face, telling him how proud she was, telling him that he had done something incredible, telling him that all of humanity was proud of him. He cried when he watched that video. He had never expected to be proud of almost dying. He had never expected that survival would lead to something like this, but it had, and now everything was different. 3 weeks later, James was called to another meeting with Captain Dae-jung and Dr. Tayson. The captain was holding a document on his data screen, and he was smiling. "The Galactic Council has voted," the captain said, "and the vote was unanimous. They want to fund a research initiative. The goal is to study human physiology and human adaptation further. They want to understand your species better. And they want to know what else humans can survive that we did not think was possible." "What does that mean?" James asked. "It means," Tassin said, his gray Krell face showing something that might have been pride, "that you have changed history. Your species is no longer a new species trying to prove itself. You are a species that has unique and valuable gifts. The galaxy is going to invest in understanding those gifts better. And there is more," Captain Dae-jung added. "They want me to continue as captain of this ship, but they also want me to lead the research team. I have asked Dr. Tayson to be my chief of research. And James, they want you to be the human liaison to the research team. They want you to help us understand your species better." James felt overwhelmed. He had wanted to be a simple crew member on a simple ship. He had wanted to do his job and help explore the galaxy. And now he was being asked to help bridge the gap between humans and the galaxy at large. "Will you do it?" Captain Dae-jung asked. James thought about everything that had happened. He thought about his mother watching news feeds back on Earth. He thought about all the humans who would come after him, all the humans who would benefit from this change in how the galaxy viewed their species. "Yes," he said. "Yes, I will do it." And with those words, the human age in the galaxy truly began. Not with weapons or technology or conquest, but with the simple fact that one human had survived something impossible and had shown the galaxy what human beings were truly capable of. Humans were not weak. Humans were not fragile. Humans were survivors. And the galaxy was about to learn exactly what that meant.